Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The steady glow of fluorescent lights illuminated the office, marking yet another uneventful day in Weston's routine. With relentless determination, he typed tirelessly on his keyboard, his gaze fixed on the screen where lines of code seemed to stretch endlessly, blurring his vision. The IT department was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the building, a graveyard of outdated technology and half-empty coffee mugs. Weston sighed, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. At 32, he'd expected more from his career than debugging software and resetting forgotten passwords. His wrinkled plaid shirt and faded jeans spoke volumes about his lack of enthusiasm for office attire. A shrill ring pierced the air, jolting Weston from his stupor. He fumbled for the phone, nearly knocking over a precariously balanced stack of manuals. IT department, Weston speaking, he muttered, stifling a yawn. Oh, thank goodness, a frantic voice chirped on the other end. It's Marjorie from accounting. My computer's gone haywire again. Weston suppressed a groan. Marjorie's emergencies were notorious throughout the office. Last time, she'd managed to set her desktop background to a strobe light effect and couldn't figure out how to change it back. I'll be right up, he promised, hanging up before she could launch into a detailed explanation of her latest technological mishap. Heaving himself out of his chair, Weston trudged towards the elevator. As he waited for the doors to open, he caught a glimpse of his reflection in the polished metal. Dark circles under his eyes, a 5 o'clock shadow at 2 in the afternoon, and was that a ketchup stain on his collar? He shook his head, wondering when he'd stopped caring about his appearance altogether. The elevator dinged, and Weston stepped inside, bracing himself for another riveting adventure in user error. As the doors slid shut, he felt a strange, tingling sensation in his fingertips. Dismissing it as too much caffeine, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. When the elevator jolted to a stop, Weston stumbled forward, momentarily disoriented. He blinked, realizing he'd somehow ended up on the wrong floor. Instead of the beige walls and cubicle maze of accounting, he found himself in a dimly lit storage room.
What the?
He muttered, fumbling for the light switch. As fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, Weston's jaw dropped. The room was filled with an eclectic assortment of furniture and knickknacks, like a thrift store had exploded inside the office building. Dusty filing cabinets rubbed shoulders with ornate lamps, and a collection of mismatched chairs formed a haphazard obstacle course. But what caught Weston's eye was the massive wardrobe dominating the far wall. It stood at least 8 feet tall, its dark wood gleaming, despite the layer of dust coating everything else in the room. Intricate carvings adorned its surface, depicting scenes that seemed to shift and change the longer he stared at them. Curiosity piqued, Weston approached the wardrobe. He ran his fingers along the smooth wood, marveling at the craftsmanship. As his hand grasped the ornate handle, a jolt of electricity shot through his arm.
Ouch!
He yelped, jerking his hand back. But the pain faded almost instantly, replaced by a warm, tingling sensation that spread throughout his body. Before he could process what was happening, the wardrobe doors swung open of their own accord. A soft, pulsing light emanated from within, illuminating a dazzling array of clothing. Weston blinked, momentarily blinded by the shimmering fabrics and sparkling accessories. As his vision cleared, he found himself reaching for a silky emerald blouse without even realizing it. The moment his fingers brushed against the fabric, the world around him began to spin. Colors blurred together, and Weston felt as if he were being pulled apart and put back together again. He squeezed his eyes shut, gripping the blouse tightly as waves of dizziness washed over him. When the spinning finally stopped, Weston cautiously opened one eye. He was still in the storage room, but something felt different. The air seemed charged with an otherworldly energy, and his skin tingled all over. Slowly, he turned to face the full-length mirror propped against the wall. The reflection that stared back at him nearly caused him to faint. Gone was the disheveled iti tani dem. In his place stood a statuesque woman with flowing auburn hair and piercing green eyes. The emerald blouse hugged curves Weston definitely didn't possess moments ago, paired with a sleek pencil skirt that accentuated long, shapely legs. Holy... Weston's voice trailed off, higher and melodious. She raised a perfectly manicured hand to her face, tracing unfamiliar but undeniably beautiful features. As the initial shock began to wear off, a strange sense of confidence washed over her. It was as if the clothing had not only transformed her appearance, but her entire demeanor as well. Well, she murmured, a mischievous smile playing at her lips. This is certainly more interesting than resetting passwords. Weston, or rather the woman he had become, straightened her posture and smoothed down her skirt. A name bubbled up from somewhere in her subconscious. Journey. It felt right, fitting this new persona like a glove. Journey took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was sure to be an interesting encounter. With one last glance in the mirror, she strode towards the door, heels clicking confidently against the linoleum floor. As she stepped out into the hallway, the familiar surroundings of her workplace took on a new light. Everything seemed brighter, more vibrant. Journey found herself noticing details she'd overlooked for years. The intricate pattern in the carpet, the way sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting geometric shadows on the walls. She made her way towards the accounting department, curious to see how her colleagues would react to this dramatic change. As she rounded the corner, she nearly collided with a group of executives emerging from a meeting room. "Oh, excuse me," Journey said, flashing a dazzling smile. The men stumbled over themselves, suddenly very interested in straightening their ties and smoothing back their hair. "No problem at all, miss," one of them managed to stammer out. "Are you new here?" "I don't believe we've had the pleasure." Journey's mind raced, quickly fabricating a cover story. "Just started today, actually. I'm with the marketing team. We're working on a new campaign." The executives nodded, clearly more interested in her appearance than her supposed role. Journey suppressed a smirk, amused by their transparent attempts to impress her. "Well, welcome aboard," another exec chimed in. "If there's anything you need, don't hesitate to ask." "That's very kind of you," Journey replied, her voice a purr. "I'll keep that in mind." As she continued down the hallway, leaving the flustered executives in her wake, Journey couldn't help but marvel at the power of her new appearance. It was intoxicating, the way people responded to her now. Part of her felt guilty for the deception, but a larger part was thrilled by the possibilities this transformation presented. Finally reaching the accounting department, Journey paused outside Marjorie's cubicle. The older woman was hunched over her keyboard, muttering to herself as she jabbed at the keys with 2 fingers. "Excuse me," Journey said softly. "I heard you were having some computer trouble?" Marjorie looked up, her eyes widening as she took in the stunning woman before her. "Oh, yes, I called it, but... She trailed off, clearly confused by Journey's presence. They sent me to help, Journey explained smoothly. I'm new to the department, specializing in user experience. May I? Still looking bewildered, Marjorie nodded and scooted her chair back. Journey leaned over the desk, quickly assessing the situation. It took all of 30 seconds to realize Marjorie had accidentally enabled caps lock and was typing her password incorrectly. With a few deft keystrokes, Journey resolved the issue. She straightened up, offering Marjorie a warm smile. There you go. All fixed. Oh, thank you, Marjorie gushed. You're a lifesaver, miss. Journey, she supplied. And it's no trouble at all. If you have any other issues, don't hesitate to call. As Journey turned to leave, she caught sight of her reflection in a nearby window. The confidence radiating from her was palpable, a far cry from the downtrodden IT tech she'd been just an hour ago. But as exhilarating as this new identity was, Journey knew she couldn't maintain it indefinitely. She needed to figure out how this transformation had happened, and, more importantly, how to reverse it. Making her way back to the storage room, Journey's mind raced with possibilities. Was this some kind of elaborate prank? A hallucination brought on by too many late nights and energy drinks? Or had she stumbled upon something truly magical? As she pushed open the door to the storage room, Journey felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The wardrobe still stood there, looking as mysterious and alluring as ever. She approached it cautiously, half expecting it to vanish like a mirage. But it remained solid and real, the intricate carvings seeming to dance in the dim light. Journey reached out, her fingers brushing against the smooth wood. The same electric tingle shot through her arm, but this time she was prepared for it. Taking a deep breath, she grasped the handle and pulled open the doors. The interior of the wardrobe was just as she remembered, a dazzling array of clothing in every color imaginable. But now, armed with the knowledge of its transformative powers, Journey viewed the contents with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. Her eyes landed on a familiar plaid shirt and pair of jeans, the outfit Weston had been wearing before this whole ordeal began. Journey hesitated, her hand hovering over the garments. Part of her longed to return to the familiar, to shed this glamorous persona and go back to the comfort of anonymity. But another part, a part that was growing stronger by the minute, was reluctant to give up this newfound confidence and power. Journey bit her lip, torn between two worlds. Finally, with a resigned sigh, she reached for the plaid shirt. As her fingers made contact with the fabric, the now familiar spinning sensation overtook her. Colors blurred, the world tilted on its axis, and Journey felt herself being unmade and remade once more. When the dizziness subsided, Weston found himself staring at his reflection in the mirror. The IT technician was back, complete with disheveled hair and ketchup-stained collar. He ran a hand over his face, feeling the rough stubble beneath his fingers.
Well,
he muttered, his voice once again low and gruff.
That was something.
As Weston stumbled out of the storage room, his mind reeled from the experience. Had it all been a dream? Some sort of stress-induced hallucination? But the lingering tingle in his fingertips and the faint scent of perfume clinging to his skin suggested otherwise. He made his way back to the IT department in a daze, barely registering the curious glances from coworkers as he passed. Collapsing into his chair, Weston stared blankly at his computer screen, the lines of code now seeming even more meaningless than before. But as the initial shock began to wear off, a spark of excitement ignited in Weston's chest. He'd discovered something extraordinary, a secret that could change everything. The possibilities were both thrilling and terrifying. As the day wore on, Weston found it increasingly difficult to focus on his work. His mind kept drifting back to the magical wardrobe and the transformation he'd experienced. The confidence and power he'd felt as Journey lingered like a phantom limb, leaving him acutely aware of its absence. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, Weston had made a decision. He couldn't just ignore what had happened. He needed to explore this newfound ability further, to understand its limits and potential. As his coworkers filed out of the office, saying their routine goodbyes, Weston hung back. He waited until the last footsteps faded away before making his way back to the storage room. Standing before the wardrobe once more, Weston took a deep breath. This time, he knew what to expect. With a mixture of anticipation and nervousness, he pulled open the doors and surveyed the array of clothing inside. His eyes landed on a sharp charcoal suit, complete with a crisp white shirt and blood-red tie. Without hesitation, Weston reached for it. The transformation was smoother this time, the disorientation less severe. When Weston opened his eyes, he found himself staring at a reflection that was both familiar and foreign. The woman looking back at him was undoubtedly Journey, but with subtle differences. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, her makeup more understated and professional. The suit fit her perfectly, accentuating her curves while projecting an air of authority. Journey straightened her tie, a small smile playing at her lips. This version of herself exuded confidence and competence, a far cry from the timid IT tech she'd been just hours ago. "All right," she murmured, her voice low and determined. "Let's see what you can do." With purposeful strides, Journey made her way to the executive floor. The office was nearly deserted at this hour, save for a few workaholics burning the midnight oil. She nodded to them as she passed, earning looks of curiosity and admiration. Journey's destination was the corner office belonging to Richard Holloway, the company's notoriously difficult CFO. She'd overheard whispers of his latest cost-cutting measures, which threatened to slash the IT department's already meager budget. Knocking sharply on the door, Journey entered without waiting for a response. Holloway looked up from his desk, irritation flashing across his face, before being replaced by surprise.
"Can I help you?"
he asked, his tone guarded. Journey smiled, the expression both charming and predatory. "Actually, Mr. Holloway, I'm here to help you." She strode forward, placing a folder on his desk that she'd snagged from a nearby cubicle. Journey had no idea what it contained, but she projected an air of absolute certainty as she flipped it open. "I've been reviewing the proposed budget cuts," she began, her voice smooth and authoritative. "And I've identified several areas where we can optimize spending without compromising essential services." Holloway's eyebrows shot up. "And you are?" "Journey Carlton from the Efficiency Task Force," she lied smoothly. "I was brought in to review departmental budgets and identify areas for improvement." For the next 20 minutes, Journey spun an intricate web of financial jargon and fabricated statistics. She drew on fragments of overheard conversations and half-remembered quarterly reports, weaving them into a compelling narrative of cost-saving measures that protected vital departments like IT. To her amazement, Holloway seemed to be buying it. He nodded along, asking questions that Journey answered with unwavering confidence. By the end of their impromptu meeting, the CFO was practically eating out of her hand.
"This is impressive work, Ms. Carlton,"
Holloway admitted, leaning back in his chair.
"I'll need to review these numbers more thoroughly, of course, but I think you may be onto something here."
Journey smiled, gathering up the folder.
I'm glad you see the potential, Mr. Holloway.
I'll have a more detailed report on your desk first thing Monday morning. As she turned to leave, Holloway called out, "Oh, and Ms. Carlton? Let's schedule a follow-up meeting next week. I think your insights could be valuable in other areas as well." "Of course," Journey replied smoothly. "I look forward to it." As she strode out of the office, Journey's heart raced with a mixture of exhilaration and disbelief. She'd just talked her way into a meeting with one of the company's top executives, potentially saving the IT department's budget in the process. The power of this new identity was intoxicating. As Journey, she could accomplish things Weston had only dreamed of. She could effect real change within the company, maybe even work her way up the corporate ladder. But as she made her way back to the storage room, doubt began to creep in. How long could she maintain this charade? What would happen if someone discovered her secret? And more importantly, what was happening to Weston in all of this? Standing before the wardrobe once more, Journey hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay in this form, to see how far she could push this new life. But she knew she needed time to process everything that had happened. With a resigned sigh, she reached for Weston's familiar plaid shirt and jeans. As the transformation took hold, Journey felt a pang of loss. But as Weston's features settled back into place, he realized that the confidence and determination he'd felt as Journey hadn't entirely disappeared. Weston left the office that night with his mind buzzing with possibilities. He'd discovered a tool that could change everything, not just for him, but potentially for the entire company. The question was, how far was he willing to go to explore this newfound power? As he drifted off to sleep that night, Weston's dreams were filled with visions of boardrooms and runways, of lives he could lead and personas he could become. The magical wardrobe had opened up a world of possibilities, and he was only just beginning to scratch the surface. The next morning, Weston awoke with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. The mundane routine of getting ready for work now held an element of excitement, knowing that at any moment he could transform into someone entirely different. As he entered the office, Weston's eyes darted around, half expecting someone to call him out on his secret. But everything seemed normal. The same fluorescent lights, the same drone of ringing phones and clacking keyboards. He made his way to his desk in the IT department, booting up his computer and pretending to focus on his work. But his mind was elsewhere, contemplating his next move. The encounter with Holloway as Journey had been exhilarating, but also dangerous. He needed to be more careful, more strategic in how he used this newfound ability. As the morning wore on, Weston found himself hyper-aware of his surroundings. He noticed things he'd overlooked for years, the way certain colleagues interacted, the subtle power dynamics at play in everyday conversations. He began to see the office not just as a workplace, but as a stage where different roles could be played. During his lunch break, Weston slipped away to the storage room. This time, he approached the wardrobe with a clear plan in mind. He'd overheard whispers of a big presentation happening that afternoon, something about a potential merger that could reshape the entire company. With careful deliberation, Weston selected a tasteful navy blue dress and matching blazer. As the transformation took hold, he felt the now familiar rush of becoming Journey. Journey emerged from the storage room with an air of quiet confidence. She made her way to the conference room where the presentation was scheduled, timing her arrival to coincide with the gathering executives.
"Ah, you must be from the consultancy firm," one of the VPs said as Journey entered the room. "We've been expecting you."
Journey smiled, seamlessly stepping into the role.
"Yes, I'm here to observe and provide an outside perspective on the potential merger. As the presentation began, Journey listened intently, her mind whirring with possibilities. She noticed things the others seemed to miss, subtle inconsistencies in the financial projections, potential synergies that hadn't been explored. When the floor opened for questions, Journey spoke up. "If I may," she began, her voice clear and assured. "I've noticed a few areas where we might be able to optimize this merger further." For the next 10 minutes, Journey outlined her observations, drawing on her unique perspective as both an insider and an outsider. The executives listened with rapt attention, clearly impressed by her insights. By the end of the meeting, Journey had not only contributed valuable input, but had also secured herself an invitation to future strategy sessions. As she left the conference room, she could hear the excited murmurs of the executives behind her. But as the adrenaline of the encounter began to fade, Journey felt a pang of guilt. She was playing a dangerous game, one that could have serious consequences if discovered. And yet, the allure of this new life, this ability to effect real change, was impossible to resist. As she made her way back to the storage room to transform back into Weston, Journey's mind raced with conflicting emotions. The line between her two identities was beginning to blur, and she wasn't sure how long she could maintain this double life. Weston emerged from the storage room, feeling drained but exhilarated. He'd just participated in a high-level strategy meeting, something he never would have dreamed possible as a lowly IT tech. But at what cost? As the days passed, Weston found himself slipping into Journey's persona more and more frequently. He used her confident charm to navigate office politics, her sharp intellect to contribute to projects far beyond the scope of IT, and her stunning appearance to open doors that had always been closed to him. But with each transformation, the lines between Weston and Journey became increasingly blurred. He found himself adopting Journey's mannerisms, even when in his original form, standing taller, speaking more assertively, dressing with greater care. Colleagues began to notice the change in Weston. Some commented on his newfound confidence, while others seemed puzzled by his sudden interest in departments outside of IT. Rumors started to circulate about his rapid rise through the company ranks. As Weston's professional life flourished, his personal life began to suffer. He withdrew from friends and family, too preoccupied with maintaining his double life to nurture relationships. The exhaustion of constantly switching between personas began to take its toll, leaving him feeling stretched thin and disconnected from both aspects of his identity. One particularly stressful day, after a series of back-to-back meetings as Journey, Weston stumbled into the storage room, desperate to return to his original form. But as he reached for his old clothes, he hesitated. Who was he really? The timid IT tech who had sleepwalked through life, or the confident, ambitious woman who commanded respect wherever she went? And if he had to choose, which life would he want to lead? Weston's hand hovered between his old plaid shirt and a sleek designer dress. In that moment, he realized that the magical wardrobe had given him more than just the ability to change his appearance. It had shown him the person he could be, the potential that had always existed within him. With a deep breath, Weston made his choice. He reached for the plaid shirt, but instead of putting it on, he carefully folded it and placed it back in the wardrobe. Then, with deliberate movements, he selected a tasteful blouse and skirt combination, something that bridged the gap between Weston and Journey. As the transformation took hold, Weston felt a sense of peace wash over him. The person who emerged was neither fully Weston nor completely Journey, but a synthesis of both. confident yet approachable, ambitious yet grounded. Stepping out of the storage room, the new Weston felt ready to face the world on their own terms. They had learned valuable lessons from both identities and were now prepared to forge a path that incorporated the best of both worlds. As Weston made their way through the office, they noticed curious glances and whispered conversations. But for the first time, they didn't feel the need to hide or pretend. They were finally comfortable in their own skin, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The magical wardrobe had started Weston on an unexpected journey of self-discovery, one that had led to a profound transformation both inside and out. And while the future remained uncertain, Weston knew that they now possessed the tools and confidence to shape it according to their own desires. As they settled into their desk, Weston smiled to themselves. The adventure was far from over. In fact, it felt like it was only just beginning. And this time, they were ready to face it head-on. No magical transformations required.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.